Welcome everybody to another one of Nain's shorts where the training continues even into the night when it's cold as hell outside. But we make it work. How? I'm not 100% sure. Everybody has their own degree of commitment to the art. Hey, and no judgment. Life gets in the way. It happens. Right now, I'm cutting into family time just to make this video. So yeah, it is what it is. But thank you for joining me. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Please get your friends to do so. It does help the algorithm figure some stuff out that makes it possible to continue putting these videos out and bringing you content every often, or as often as we can, rather. So today, I want to talk about something that I've been working on personally in my continued journey to fight like an old man, or like an older seasoned practitioner. Yes, I'm talking about you, Rick. Older seasoned practitioner. That's as nice as I'm going to get today, okay, before I say anything else. But, like I said, I've had the pleasure of playing with a lot of these instructors, really good instructors that never seem to break a sweat whenever I attack them. Now, keeping in mind that I'm not trying to actually hurt them, but I'm not pulling my punches either. I'm really trying to reach my targets every time. I have every intention of making contact, and I hardly ever can, because these guys just stay so cool, calm, and collected that they always have a response for what's going on. Now, we can equate that to skill, we can equate that to years of training, and you know, there are those factors that do apply to this particular situation, but I need something actionable, something that I can train myself that is going to help me stay cool, calm, and collected the way that I see these individuals do every time we play or spar or just flat out demonstrate something. So my first thought was, wow, you know, they don't seem to skip a beat. And even though sometimes I do push them a little harder, and they do have to work a little harder the better I get as a practitioner, and they might even break a sweat, they never seem to be huffing and puffing. They're never trying to catch their breath or anything. So I started thinking, is the level of breathing, their ability to just calmly breathe through everything, even though they're talking, even though they're going fast or hard, depending on the situation, they stay steady in the way that they inhale and exhale. So I started putting together a lot of information, or at least what information I have in reference to this. And one of my biggest wells of knowledge when it comes to proper breathing came in the form of a boxing instructor by the name of Fernando Solis. Wonderful guy. He's a great instructor, and he's brought a scientific method to the idea of breathing and how it correlates to movement, activation of certain muscles, of certain joints in the process of throwing a hook, a jab, a straight cross. All these different things and all the different body parts that are involved in it. And he teaches his students these simple exercises that allow them to activate certain muscle groups that many of us don't actually realize we have. That some other instructors, other martial artists have told me that it's when we practice things slowly that we start using those smaller muscle groups. And that's how we get that definition and that steadiness and that sharpness in our then faster movements later on, probably having something to do with fast twitch and slow twitch muscles, but that's more than I can handle right now. And in talking with Fernando, one of our very first encounters, he told me that I was breathing wrong. And I was like, wait, I've been breathing for 30-something years. How can I be breathing wrong? I'm still alive. And he put it as plainly as he could. He said, take your left hand and put it on your chest. Take your right hand and put it on your belly button. Now take a deep breath. And then he asked, which hand moves? Now, I just imitated the way that I used to breathe. My deep inhale. And you see, my chest expands. I moved my left hand. And then he pointed out, well, that's wrong. If you're taking a truly deep breath, it should be your right hand, the one over your stomach, that moves. So it should look something like this. And then I wondered why, because sure, I took his word and I have been practicing breathing exercises like that for a while, but I had to understand why. I had to look into why. So I started researching, started looking through some medical videos, as well as the biology of the human body, anatomy. But I didn't understand it. Then I came across Bill Nye the Science Guy, and that's more my speed. That's kind of where my intelligence level is, a kid's show. But the way he explained is that the lungs are like a balloon. They don't have any way to inflate themselves. And they're encased in these ribs. And the ribs don't really have a lot of room to expand. So how does breathing actually work? Well, it's the diaphragm. The diaphragm works like an elastic that keeps the pressure so the lungs are compressed. But when you expand that elastic, it creates low pressure in the lungs and allows them to fill in with air or something along those lines. In other words, the diaphragm is the key to the deep breath, and we have to be able to expand it as much as possible. And we live in a world of social media, so nobody wants to stick out their stomach, and maybe that's why Filipino martial artists all seem to have a gut, or at least the older ones. So then you can't tell that they're breathing deeply inside because they have their stomachs expanded. I don't know. But I started breathing that way. And now, as I explored other ideas in breathing, I found out that there are techniques for breathing that can help with anxiety. There are techniques to help you calm down. There are techniques to help you increase adrenaline flow. There are techniques to help you kick in endorphins, or even serotonin. Different ways to breathe can activate different things in the body and in the brain that give you different results. Then I started correlating the breath with all the different arts. The Chinese arts have very deep sets of breath as they're and the breath coincides with the movements from coming up to expanding to compressing the entire torso, whereas the pressure is created. It's not at the tips, but it's the entire core, and then the entire body that works along with it. In boxing, you have the in Kaju, you have the ki, which allows you to compress your muscles as you breathe out, and you're able to then resist a bit more pressure when you're getting hit. It's even part of the curriculum when we start making more and more contact that the students learn to ki, so then they can resist a bit more of the punishment, and our bodies can temper themselves. But it all has to do with the breath. And then, in other classes, in the self-protection for women that I've helped Rick teach for many years now, and that now my fellow student Risa is taking over, we talk about the idea of how taking a deep breath, allowing the diaphragm to fully expand, oxygenates the blood, oxygenates the brain. It lowers the amount of cortisol, which is pumped out, usually in high stress situations, which is a chemical that activates other changes in the body. Especially like when we're scared, when we're frightened by something, our bodies go through a physiological change. One, we forget about breathing. Our butterflies in our stomach, we feel queasy, we get clammy in our hands, we get cold in our limbs. And the reason behind that is that your body is preparing for the fight or flight response. It stops digesting food because it's going to use the energy to run. It lowers circulation to your outer limbs, so in case you lose one, you don't bleed out as fast. Your brain can actually become dumber because of this chemical, because it doesn't need to figure out a quadratic equation at that time. It just needs to decide to run or fight. But it also causes us to panic. And people have felt this throughout their entire lives in different ways. Is if you're in a hurry in the morning and you can't find your keys and you check your pocket, you check the same pockets 7 or 8 times, knowing that it's not there, knowing that they're not where you think they are, but yet you keep on doing it because your brain is in a panic and it just goes in a loop and it keeps doing what it knows to do at its simple and most basic level. And it's not until that your brain calms down enough for it to remember where you left that. The breath becomes key to keeping a cool head and mind. And that's what I see in these masters. That's what I see in these practitioners. Their breath doesn't change. And because of that, they stay calm, cool, and collected. So I started with breathing exercises. I started doing deep diaphragm breaths. 4 count in, 4 count out. But not just in a stationary position. I wasn't just meditating. I started doing it in everyday life. I started doing it while driving. I started doing it while on the pod, while eating, while talking. I started doing it while I'm sitting. And other activities as well. And I found out something incredibly interesting, or at least to me interesting. As I was doing my 4 count, it took a while to get comfortable with the idea of me counting while I'm driving or doing other activities. It's a little hard to split your thought process, but the breathing did help. I also found out that my breathing stops quite often. There were so many times where I would be breathing and I'm at number 2 and something distracted me or something came into my field of vision and I started exhaling automatically. I wasn't controlling my breath, but rather the reaction of what was going on around me changed my breathing pattern. And it made me think, what other times, even when training, even when sparring, does my breathing get completely thrown off and I'm no longer in control? I'm no longer oxygenating my body like I should. And I do this in everyday life and not just in meditation. Now, there are people who practice this solely when they're doing meditation, and for those who have meditated for years and years and years, like monks who, live up in the mountains, the physiology of their brain, the way that their brain works is amazing because, again, I have to keep poking at this stuff and finding out information, and to put it in the simplest terms that I can, their brain can feel emotions, contact, all these things that affect us at a much higher rate than we can. Like, for example, say this is the baseline, this is 0, emotional response. Most of us are somewhere over here, above it, say 20 or 30. Something exciting happens and it goes up gradually, sometimes sharp, but it usually takes a long time on the graph to come back down. But these people that have control of their breath, that have been doing it for years and can stay calm in every situation, when they are affected emotionally, when something startles them, when they are hurt, when they feel excitement, they go from very low baseline. While the rest of us are up here, they're down here. But when stimulated, their brain activity shoots up really fast and sometimes higher than us regular people. But just as fast as it goes up, it also comes back down, which means they feel everything even more intensely than we do, but a lot faster. They go back to the state of being calm and collected so quickly that we hardly ever notice it. And that's what I see with these older fighters, with these older instructors. I see that degree of calmness, Zen, if you can call it, which allows their brain to function at a higher level than those of us who are being frazzled, who are being affected, who are being scared because, well, they're scary individuals when we train with them. And that's part of the training, is getting over that fear. And to me, the first place to start is that breath. Can you control that breath? How many of us spend the time to learn how to control the breath? And how many of us incorporate that into the training that we do? The breathing while we're exercising, while we're doing our moves, while we're rolling on the ground, while we're wrestling, while we're throwing punches, while we're sparring. But of course, I have to question also, is that only true in their element? Now, what do I mean by this? Well, are they only calm and collected within the school setting? If we were to put them in a real fight situation, would they change? Would their breathing be affected the way it affects us because we are less learned in that situation? And for that, I've taken examples from outside of the martial arts, from athletes. I have a cousin who jogs almost 7 days a week. When he has a bad week, he only does it about 4 days a week. And he can go for a long time. I went jogging with him one time, and I was able to keep up for the first 2.5 miles. But by mile 3, he was passing me up. He was going further and further ahead. And the thing is, he wasn't running any faster. He kept the exact same pace the whole time. His breathing was steady, he was breaking a sweat, but he wasn't huffing and puffing, he wasn't tired. And part of that, yes, is the conditioning of his body. But I wonder if had I known then to keep my breath a bit steadier, to not allow my fatigue to hinder my breathing, and actually have a better control and sense of my breath, would I have been able to have kept up more with him? And in that element, he's great. In that moment, he's awesome. Later that day, we were on a basketball court and we both were just as tired. We were both huffing and puffing. We changed the element of energy that he was using and the way that he was using it. All of a sudden, that steady breath wasn't there. That calmness wasn't the same. We shift. There's so many people that are great at one thing and they can stay calm and collected in that thing, but you take them outside of the element and they fall apart completely. The same way that I noticed that my steady breathing was altered and changed by so many factors, by so many stimuluses that go on in everyday life. Now, I'm not 100% sure if this is going to yield any positive results when it comes to my martial arts, but so far I think it has, to an extent. I had a sparring match with my training partner in Kaju Kempo. Now he is 6'2", and I've talked about him before. Robert, awesome training partner. He's a dancer by profession, and he can probably dance for hours. And sure, he'll break a sweat, and he definitely has the kind of physique that you can tell he doesn't skip gym or leg day. He's a fit guy, and he has great cardiovascular health. He's an awesome dancer and he can do that for a long time, but you put pads on him, you put gloves on him, and he was gassing out. And he even commented, he said, "Man, you have great stamina." And I'm looking at him like, "You bastard, look at you. You look like a poster child for a gym rat, but yet you're saying I have better conditioning than you." And that wasn't the case. It was just that I was calmer. My breath was steady. I knew when to inhale, I knew when to exhale, and I kept calm. Sure, I'm more familiar with that element, and that has a lot to do with why I was able to stay in better condition than he was. But he knows how to breathe properly when he does other physical activities. And if we truly understood that breath, would we then be able to transfer it and translate it into everything that we did? So we can stay cool, calm, and collected no matter what happens, no matter what pops up. And that is what I'm striving for. That's what I'm hoping to achieve, because that's what I see in these older practitioners, in my teachers and instructors, in the people that I admire and that I hope to come close to one day. So, that's where I am so far in my training. Thank you very much for joining me on another one of Nain's Short. Please comment, like, and subscribe like I said before, and let your friends know so we can get our numbers up as much as possible so we can continue bringing these. If you find them exciting or at least entertaining, by all means, please help us out. Till the next one. 3, 2, 1, cut!